OSGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, and in this video I want to look at some of the aspects in regards to Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, and we will carry on with recent uploads in regards to this ancient wisdom, systems of architecture, systems of weights and measure, but more importantly measuring time, and how these aspects actually will connect together. I'm going to present a few more videos on this in regards to Chartres Cathedral, Beauvais Cathedral, Notre Dame in Paris, and others, how they connect in this very systematic way. But more importantly, in this one I'll be looking at how the knowledge that's in the Great Pyramid has been passed through time and can be found in places such as Notre Dame in Paris. It was a great loss to the world, and the damage done therein. There are not many of these beautiful buildings around the place. Unlike the pyramids, these cathedrals are hollow, and they're amazing buildings architecturally, surpass the pyramids because they're paper thin walls and they're hollow and they let in light. But for instance, Beauvais Cathedral, the nave 144, I'm going to specify medieval royal feet high. This will be an important feature. But who were the ancient masons? Well, the ancient masons built the Parthenon, they built the pyramids, they built all of the stonework that we celebrate, and it's in this Masonic stonemason tradition that goes through, and the symbols of the modern masons, free and accepted masons, are embedded in the ancient masons, where the compass, the builder's square, the plumb line, the mallet, the stone the builders rejected, has been passed through consistently throughout time. And why did the masons, why were they so interested in geometry? Well, you need to be able to calculate the geometry to calculate the proportions of the stone and of the building. It's an essential element of geometry. It's an essential element of architecture. So even we still see, for instance, the plumb lines and the squares to verify the cornerstones as a ceremony that still stays with us now. Another important feature in regards to Notre Dame in Paris is that outside the main doors, a very short distance away, is this 0 mile marker, 0 point marker. All the measurements were leading to or from the kingdom were measured here just outside Notre Dame in Paris. Just like the ancient omphalos stones, navel stones, umbilicus stones, ben stones, they marked the center of the world. All measurements would be taken from these particular points. This is another ancient tradition which goes back through the Greco-Roman period, way back to ancient Egypt as well. There is a constant, unbroken tradition in that sense. So Notre Dame was essentially the physical center of the world, with the 0 mile marker at the front. Even up until with the development of new cities in America, Canada, Australia, for instance, you would find the town plans would have a church there at the center. So spiritually but physically they mark the center of the world. But there is another important recurring feature, not just in cathedrals but also in ancient temples, where we'll find these very specific beautiful numbers that are so important in geometry, astronomy, arithmetic, and of course in music as well. So you'll see how whether it's the length or the height or the width will be 144, and still in modern cathedrals and churches, but also in these very ancient ones. Now, for instance, Peterborough Cathedral, 144 feet high, and this is an interesting point in regards to the origin of the, let's call it the modern English foot. But Amiens Cathedral in France also shows the nave 144 Roman feet high. So the unit itself, they'll still always embed these same particular numbers. I'm going to put a link to Zenovis 50. He's been posting some videos in regards to Durham Cathedral. But for instance, we have the tower, the northern towers, 144 feet. The central tower, 216 feet. That's a 2:3 ratio, very vesica, hermetic constant, but 216 feet equals 144 cubits. But this also asks the question where the origin of the foot, as it's been lost in time, so to speak. But these numbers are important because they refer to New Jerusalem, as is described in the Bible, the holy city of New Jerusalem. In Revelations 22:15 and onwards, it talks about the measuring rod, the four square city, but the important part for this aspect is, and he measured its wall 144 cubits. That's 216 feet, as we saw earlier. So many aspects, a very important number. Now, Beauvais Cathedral, the nave is 144 medieval royal feet high. So we'll see different units of measure, always coming back to these. And this predates the cathedrals. This predates the Greco-Roman era. We can find that in this ancient tradition. But Notre Dame is also built around this medieval royal foot. Stefan van Lefferinge, I'll put the link in the description, building the great cathedrals. And this is a very important number because there are symbolic aspects to it, but there are also very hard facts to it, which will link us even to the Great Pyramid and the geometry-metrology astronomy that's bedded in there. It's hermetic knowledge. It's the measurement of length, the measurement of time coming together in the Quadrivium or the seven liberal arts, and will very important feature in there as well in regards to Masonic traditions as well. So whether it's so much Masonic tradition, it comes from the Bible, but also Greco-Roman legends going back, and Thoth, Hermes, and these gods of weights and measure. And this all relates to the King Solomon's temple and King Hiram of Tyre, who trained the masons to build this temple. This is very important in the Masonic tradition, the third master masons, and the legend of Hiram. And but the first kings, 6'2", Solomon's temple 30 cubits high, 60 cubits long. That's it. So if you were to take the facade at the front and back and fold it down, they should meet there at the center, a 2-to-1 ratio, just like in the king's chamber. But Solomon's temple, in so many aspects, is symbolic, ritualistic, but also in the masonry, the measurement as well. But very important. This is Sydney Masonic Centre. You'll see the importance of King Hiram Abiff, and Solomon's temple is one of these cornerstones of Freemasonry. You'll even see, so the bottom 3 steps to become a master mason, where you're going to get to that legend of Hiram Abiff. But in this particular one, they also show the importance of King Solomon's temple, which should be on Mount Zion, which would connect also to the legend of Enoch and the Enoch's cube and the angel Metatron. But the Romans, the Collegia, that's where they trained that was their universities. We can see the same symbols that will go from these, describing the craft guilds, such as masons, carpenters, glass makers, metal workers, the ancient skills. Well, they used the same emblems and symbols that are embedded there. Chartres Cathedral even honours the master masons who built these wonderful cathedrals, because they're hollow. It's like they're hanging from the sky. They're very different from the columns and lintels of the Greek Roman temples or the stacked blocks of the pyramids. The cathedrals, or the Hagia Sophia, the Blue Mosque, or the Pantheon in Rome, are a whole new level of architecture. But why is this particular measurement, or royal foot, or I'm going to call it the medieval royal foot, which is embedded in Notre Dame, so important? Well, we see, of course, the Masonic engineering tradition to build these. These are fantastic buildings, but also the metrology will link to an important feature. And I'll drop this video in the playlist into regards to the pyramid one, because that's our aspects of it. It does connect. Now, for instance, here, let's go to the Great Pyramid, or the cubit. The cubit describes all the pyramids, but what happens if we take the plan, circle and square, fold it up of the Great Pyramid? We're squaring the circle. But a 1 meter pendulum at 30 degrees, which is the maximum swing it should to keep the timing, equals pi over 6 meters equals 1 Egyptian roll cubit equals 86,400 seconds per day, which comes from the geometry of the Templar cross, 30 degrees. But also we now can start to square the circle, the geometry and the astronomy coming together with the metrology. This is an important feature. And it just so happens that squaring the circle now gives you the relative size of the Earth and the Moon. So the Moon is 27.3% the size of the Earth. This number has so many other aspects which I've covered, but It's the coming together of geometry, measurement and metrology and astronomy, or an arithmetic, as well as musical aspects, which there are these implications for this as well. So 1 meter equals 1 Egyptian royal cubit equals 1 second, and there just so happens to be 86,400 seconds per day. Even ancient Egyptian time sundials, we can see that they were dividing the day into 12 hours per day and 12 hours per night. The system of measurement of time that we still use now has very, very ancient roots, and well, 86,400 seconds per day. If we stand at the corner of the Great Pyramid, we get the maximum visible base length, including the sockets. If we multiply the maximum visible base length by 86,400, we get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Now, maximum visible, because a pyramid, if you're at ground level, the most you can ever see is 2 sides. 1 cubit, 1 meter, 1 second, 86,400 seconds per day. And this number is also so important in other aspects, but that's the maximum visible base length. Now, what's the maximum height of the pyramid? Well, the pyramid sits on paving stones, which are 55 centimeters, which just happens to convert to 273 in other aspects, but the maximum height of a pyramid, including the paving stones, times 86,400 gives us the polar diameter of the Earth, again rivaling the best modern satellite measures. So deep levels of knowledge. Now all this will apply to the great cathedrals, because they were also using time to measure their choir. So how would this apply to the medieval royal foot, as we found in Notre Dame or Beauvais, which have these other ancient symbolic references, biblical, but also these Egyptian connections, this tradition of stonemasonry, geometry, metrology that has gone through. Now, for instance, the flower of life, 1 meter diameter, therefore pi meters circumference, 1/6 of that, you get Egyptian royal cubit. We saw, you can also find it in sarcophagi as well, but the capstone found next to the red pyramid, a scar replica of the Great Pyramid, happens to be 1 meter high. And of course the Holy of Holies, the Great Pyramid, and the references to universal constants in proportion, but also through measurement, and especially the meter, how these refer back to one another. So, well, Notre Dame contains this. So 32.8 feet equals 30 royal feet. 3.2808 equals feet equals 1 meter. 3.28 feet equals 3 medieval royal feet. Therefore, 1 medieval royal yard of 3 feet equals 0.99974 meters. That's a difference of 1/4 of a millimeter from 1 modern meter. And again, just like the origin of the foot, the origin of the meter has become lost. Well, it's not lost, but it's not spoken of because it's almost heretical. To suggest the Egyptians had the second or the meter is essentially a heresy amongst some in the Orthodox history. The definition of the modern meter will go back to the 1700s, but of course as in Merrimer-San and Riccioli, we see that they were developing the second, or this early version of a meter 2 centuries before but 2 centuries before the modern meter. The meter, the second, and the Egyptian royal cubit. Well, we have a comparison of 2 pendulums. One is 1 meter long, and the other is 1 medieval royal yard long, which is 999.744 millimeters. That's a difference of 1/4 of a millimeter in length. Therefore, the arc created by this medieval royal yard pendulum, which would be derived from Beauvais or Notre Dame Cathedral, is 0.14 of a millimeter from the Egyptian royal cubit. what we have in these ancient cathedrals, this ancient metrology, it's a continuation of the systems of Hermes and the seven liberal arts. The use of the so for to measuring work, or if you're an alchemist, to measure your reactions with your chemistry, or whether you're a choir master measuring, the measurement of time in small units such as a second is essential. And it is in Beauvais or Notre Dame we can find that it is 500 years at least prior to the invention, or the alleged invention, of the modern meter, or the first publications on deriving a second from one pendulum. This is Hermetic knowledge, this is the occult wisdom, these are the ancient sciences which is literally still with us today. We still use a 12-hour clock, 60 minutes per hour, 60 seconds per minute, or 1,440 minutes per day, 1440 minutes per day, or 86,400 seconds per day, which has, not just in regards to the size of the Earth in relation to the pyramid, but whether it's the yugas and all these other traditions, these are the same numbers that these ancient civilizations, cross time, cross the world, cross cultures, always returned to. There is something to this, and it's not just a religious fetish, it is metrology, it is science. So ultimately we're always going to return to weights and measures, the knowledge of Thoth, the knowledge of Shesset, the knowledge of Ingashida, the knowledge of Nuwa and Fuzi in China, or Hermeticism, Hermes, the gods of weights and measures. Now, in the modern internet incarnation of things, anything which is remotely geometric or Masonic is considered evil. However, all these legends are actually embedded in the biblical scale, which is a curious thing in regards that biblical legend is evil in one aspect, but if you look at it in another aspect, well, okay, it comes back to the Great Pyramid. And so whether it's measuring degrees or angles, where am I going? It's measuring time. When am I? When will I get there? It's measuring length. How far is it until I get to my destination? Where am I? Who am I? Where am I going? When will I get there? The knowledge of Hermes, the knowledge of weights and measures, which is embedded in the knowledge of time, and the knowledge of time, the wisdom of time, is metrological. The measures of length will give you the measures of time via the compass, via the pendulum, via the ruler. The king is the ruler, the queen is the ruler, and the queen or the king, the ruler, defines the length of the ruler. Therefore they define the length of time. Therefore they also define the measures of weight. Weights and measures, measuring time, measuring distance, measuring weight, measuring angles, measuring temperature, measuring pressure. All of these things are wonderfully connected, and to call it coincidence, well, maybe it is, but you need to prove that, because the probabilities of this not being a coincidence continues to mount the more you look into these things. And so with that, great cathedrals are continuing these ancient Masonic legend, ancient Masonic knowledge of weights, measures, times and angles and universal constants. With that, cheerio and have a good one. Measure, cut, measure once, measure twice. You only need to cut once. Have a good one.